Welcome back. I want to talk today about my early fascination with Madonna during college and hero worship and celebrity worship. And you may have somebody yourself that you've looked up to and had had like a bitter taste perhaps when you learned more about what's behind the celebrity. I know I talked with somebody from high school. He admired a sports figure, I think it was a sports figure or a musician, and felt a little disappointed by what the celebrity actually was like. Um, I want to take you on a journey of my fascination with Madonna. Um, I grew up in the early 80s. Well, I was 10 in 1985, so that gives you some context. So I had certainly seen her on MTV and just in the media in general, along with a lot of other pop singers. And then in senior year of high school, I'm not saying this is the only reason, but I've thought of this as being one of the contributing factors. I had a iffy, failed, not necessarily failed, but a sad experience in senior year of high school, and so that left me kind of empty. And then sometime during college, I remember writing. I remember being in a screenwriting course, and this would have been around 1995 or 96. I wrote a parody of Madonna's relationship with Sean Penn. And of course, I was very inexperienced, but I did have some elements of screenwriting. I knew a little bit of something about screenwriting from having written teleplays for television. None of them sold, but I had experience writing what are screenplays for television. So I wrote this, I turned it in, I got a grade for it, and then let me see, she turned 40, Madonna turned 40 in 1998, but I think I would have had some attraction to her before that because in 95 or 96, I had already written that parody. So it would have been before her 40th birthday. I perhaps saw her in a VH1 best hits of the 80s or something like that. And for some reason, I just became attracted to her. I know she was beautiful. I know she was very talented. At least I thought so. And she had a dynamic personality. I don't need to go through justifying why she seemed to have such a dynamic personality and attractive personality, because a lot of people have said that. So I was one of those people, and I would fantasize of her in several different ways. She took on several different purposes. Number one, I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, and excuse me, my back is really scratchy. She didn't, she kind of fulfilled like a girlfriend fantasy. I was also looking forward to moving to Los Angeles. I really wanted to go to Los Angeles and start a film career and some kind of entertainment career in film or TV. And she was like I thought of her anyway as like being someone who could possibly help me go into that or ease me into that or like give me a leg up to get into it. And she just represented the fame that I aspired to have. So and again, the empty heart from the experience in senior year. So at some point, I wrote her some letters, and I I know I wasn't going on and on to everybody that how in love with Madonna I was and so forth. That would have been childish. But internally, she was like a placeholder for a girlfriend. Um, and as I read about her, I remember going to the gallery library downtown called the Galleries and borrowing a book. I think that's where I got it. Anyway, borrowing a book. It was like one of those pop magazine books where it's a lot of photographs and some interviews and some tidbits about her. Nothing deep. It wasn't like a thick book. And I read more about her, her background. Now, I'll tell you the things that I thought were common to me. You know that we shared. I wanted to at least be friends with her because she was an artist and I was an aspiring artist. I was an artist. I just hadn't earned the credentials for it yet. But I'm an artist at heart, and I thought that she was an artist at heart. Um, so I admired that wanted she had high standards in terms of her art, and I admired that she had something to say, given what songs she had or what performance or something or other. She really put a lot of thought behind how it came out. Thought a lot of thought into designing it and conceiving it. So I admired her for that. Uh, and I know this is a little bit later, but I learned something about her being interested in Kabbalah, and of course, around 95 or 96, it would have been that same time, I, being Jewish, became more fascinated in Kabbalah, with Kabbalah myself. I knew some Hebrew, and I had Jewish background, so I came into it somewhat prepared, came into studying Kabbalah somewhat prepared already. I don't know how much background she had when going into it, but from what I understand, I guess, I can only guess that she took it seriously. She may not have gotten authentic Kabbalah, but it seems like she was doing it sincerely and genuinely to help her with something. I hope it wasn't just a fad, something trendy to capitalize upon. Um, so I wanted to share with her what real Kabbalah was. I just wanted to sit and talk with her and share experiences with her. And I also at the time wanted like a mentor, not only with her, but I just wanted a mentor in terms of career. So, so in 1998, I wrote this screenplay. It was called Manhattan Masquerade, and I turned it in for a grade. I got some high mark, and of course, I would have written it differently now because I know much more about screenwriting, but it was sort of competent. I mean, it was technically the screenplay was structured well. It had a lot of poetry. I initially, well, I initially had in mind writing her in as herself in something based on what was that story? The one with the person with the do you have a long nose? Cyrano de Bergerac. However, I moved off from Cyrano de Bergerac and into The Taming of the Shrew by Shakespeare, which itself was based on The Taming of a Shrew, I believe. But Shakespeare had a habit of borrowing from earlier stories and writing his own version. So I wrote this called Manhattan Masquerade, infusing screwball comedy, and it must have been in that book or something I read about her that she enjoyed comedy. She enjoyed that type of comedy, screwball comedy, and she'd already been in Shanghai Surprise, and what was the earlier one? Who's That Girl? So I wanted to impress her. I wanted to put in these elements, and I wanted to show off that I was smart and creative and artistic. So I put as much of that as I could into Manhattan Masquerade, and that was around 1998. I was looking towards graduating from college. I went for 5 years, year round, to earn it was a dual degree. It was a dual major, two bachelor's degrees, and I I remember making some finishing touches on Manhattan Masquerade after the class assignment and turning it into CAA. And that would have been like 1999, and then something like 2000, the beginning of 2000. I was working at some company, and I had to in another state, and I lost the job and had to come back to my hometown. And that's when I read the letter, the rejection letter from CAA. And I'll tell you what my reaction was in terms of my admiration for Madonna. I felt personally that that was one step away from being able to earn her admiration, because not only was I trying to earn her admiration, I was trying to write it well enough to have a product that would be in demand in Hollywood, because you're going against incredible odds. I can just I don't even want to ponder or conjecture what the odds are of getting your screenplay actually read by somebody. So anyway, suffice it to say that the rejection by CAA made me feel like I was not only geographically thrown back to my hometown, that barely appears on a map. Well, it's not true. I mean, some people know about the hometown, but spiritually, mentally, I felt a step away from being able to go on and possibly meet her and have this dream come true. So I spent the next 12 years in various methods. I don't want to go into that. It's more about celebrity worship and so forth. Trying to develop and incorporate Kabbalistic elements and other aspects into this story that I was developing. I wanted to revise it totally. I wanted to make it better. I wanted to learn how to write the screenplay much, much better. That should impress Madonna. She's very smart. I read in some book, I think it was Blonde Ambition, the unauthorized biography, that I think it was in that book that she could have been a lawyer, but she decided to go into Hollywood. I don't know if that's true or not, but she just seems very smart in terms of her business acumen and so forth. She just seems very smart. So I kept working at it, and I mentioned the next 12 years because that's in 2012. That's when I discovered Dramatica, the theory, the storytelling theory of Dramatica, and I've talked about that in earlier videos. You can check on that and check on the internet yourself. And I continued on, and the next big moment was, well, over a span of time, I wrote some letters to her, not expecting her to necessarily read them. One of the points that I wanted to make was explaining Kabbalah, because I wished for her sake that she would learn authentic Kabbalah, and there's so much depth in it, and I was concerned that she was only getting the Hollywood flaky stuff, the trendy stuff, and I was concerned that she didn't have the depth. So depth, Jewish depth, and the knowledge that one needs to be able to begin and truly understand Kabbalah, because it's more than just a few elements you read in a book or sayings or proverbs or something. The Judaism and Kabbalah are, at this point anyway, intertwined. Kabbalah draws from Jewish heritage and Jewish tradition, Jewish mythology, if you could call it that. And Judaism talks about Kabbalistic elements, so the two are intertwined. Plus, you would need to know Hebrew in order to actually study Kabbalah in its original language, its actual context, actual language, the actual texts. It can't truly be translated. I mean, the ancient texts can't truly be translated fully unless you read the actual Hebrew. So anyway, I wrote several letters, and I remember at the time I said, good luck with, I think his name was Juan, somebody she was dating, I think a jogging trainer or somebody, and I think Dennis Rodman was in there somewhere, but I remember, I can't remember his name, Juan something, a Hispanic name. Good luck with him. I mean, I meant that in a genuine way, and these were friendly letters and just like conversational letters. Figured that was the only way I could get my thoughts out. And who knows if she would actually read them, but at least from my point of view, I could at least send like fan letters out. I don't want to call them fan letters, but just send those thoughts out. So I remember around 2015 or 16 when I was living in another house, that was the last of the letters. I decided I got out all of what I wanted to say. I still admired her, but I didn't have any more, and I didn't. I knew that she probably gets tons and tons of mail, literally tons and tons of mail. There was no realistic way of having some kind of relationship or friendship or contact with her. Unless, of course, I got that screenplay to her. So I figured I would constructively keep working on the screenplay. About that same time, I reached out to somebody who had written screenplays. She helped me a little bit, and then we parted ways when my mom died. This was somebody on the internet. This is somebody I never knew personally. I think she had been in Los Angeles and she had to move back to, I don't remember where she moved back to, but like, Midwest or something or other, mid United States, something or other. But at least I was talking with her. I needed somebody to talk with about this project, this movie project, because every year that went by just felt like I should have done it a year ago. I should have done it several years ago. Why is it taking so long? So forth. So I guess it's good that I bring that up because I had been comparing myself, especially early on, I had been comparing myself to her. Age-wise, I graduated in age of 21, something like that. What was it, 21? No, 22. Would have been more like 22. Anyway, I just felt pulled back, and the fact that she seemed so young when she became a big star, and she was getting older. She was already easily, was it 20 years? Well, 1958. She was easily 15 or 17 years older than I was. So I felt I was comparing myself to her. Some personality traits I saw in myself. She's a big star. Why can't I be a big star? I deserve to be a big star. I take a lot of interest. I put a lot of effort into my creations. I'm very smart, I'm creative, and I think at higher levels, and I wish I could have a friend that I could interact with and share ideas as I saw her being able to. And of course, there's the girlfriend element. I didn't have a girl. I had never had a girlfriend at that point. It took me a long while before I could have a girlfriend, and that's because I'm Jewish and in a very non-Jewish area, and that's another story. So, what else about hero worship? Or I don't like to call it worship because I don't know whether I was treating her as a goddess or not. I explained the different roles that she played mentally in my life, um, in my thinking process, my mindset. But I knew she wasn't divine. She had faults, but I swept them under the rug. I swept those faults about her that I knew about under the rug. And she seemed to be smart. I remember one, well, I don't want to go into things I knew about her um, from what I've read. Suffice it to say that I looked up to her and respected her a lot. And then I have continued working on that screenplay over time, and I'm sad that it's taken so long. And I felt some dismay and um, I don't want to say concern about myself, just frustration with myself for not being able to write a screenplay that I thought was worthy enough to get to her. And so very recently, I contacted thanks to IMDb Pro, um, I was able to find out some contact address for her management company, somebody in there. Um, and I don't want to go into further into that, but so I would also have these internal conversations. They weren't long, just thoughts would come to mind. Like I would imagine her at some point saying, "Well, you're not worthy enough to contact me," or and then other times I thought, I mean, these aren't. I'm not hallucinating. I'm just these thoughts would come in like imagine her saying that, or other times, especially early on when I was writing Manhattan Masquerade and so forth, and then I was in college, I would imagine her encouraging me. So I wonder if any of you have had experiences like this with somebody that you looked up to, some celebrity that you admired. And what prompted this video was watching a video on YouTube. It was really an audio of a Howard Stern interview with her brother Christopher, and he's since passed away. But that was that was a replay. It was when he was essentially promoting his book, 2008, I think, something like that. So, from what I've learned about her, maybe I remember she said at one point in an interview, I don't remember the question, but I read this, that she doesn't wish Mr. Madonna on anyone, something like that. So I want to say it's funny. I keep thinking this. It's so funny. Somebody who's smart like that doesn't pick up on, isn't introspective enough, or doesn't, and she has to be introspective enough. She has to be self-aware enough to have picked up on this stuff. And maybe rumors and gossip have been overblown, but it's a shame. I hope this isn't really true. I hope those rumors are overblown. But for somebody, see, here's the Madonna that I would like to meet. She studied Kabbalah. She's taken it to heart. She's grown emotionally and spiritually to have a more comfortable life, a more fulfilling life, a richer life, beyond just money, a richer life. And it's funny now that I say this, even back when I was writing Manhattan Masquerade, and I've mentioned it's Madonna, so I can just be completely open. What intrigued me at the very beginning was this project. I'll tell you what the earliest version, I think the earliest inklings I had about the story idea was some guy like myself, who's like a nobody, meets Madonna, and he has this perception of her as larger than life, and then I already had in mind that I wanted to impress Madonna with it, right? So I already had her in mind. What intrigued me was that she seemed to have two facets to her, and maybe I was reading something about that. And this aspect of control came in later on, that she needed things to be in control. She needed to be in control. This is from reading interviews with her or about her. That blonde ambition, that blonde ambition unauthorized biography served a good amount of material for me to understand what type of a person, what kind of a person she was, because I was not only portraying her in the screenplay, but I was writing the screenplay to impress her, and I wanted things that would click with her specifically. Thus, it would be a screwball comedy, and I had in mind bringing up Baby, and I indirectly kind of thank her for introducing me to screwball comedy, because I still love Bringing Up Baby, and was it Man Trouble and Love Crazy, and a whole bunch of, just look up 1930s and 1940s screwball comedy, you know what I mean. So I thought her focus on control, her need for control around her, in her life, I thought about Bringing Up Baby, and it's a story about Susan, who is an ritzy family background, and she's chaotic in a comedic way. She's chaotic and brings about these chaotic aspects to this straight-laced guy who's stuck in his ways, and he needs to be broken out of his shell. So I thought of that, and I wrote it from that point of view. I thought this aspect of control, so this nobody comes in and breaks up her ability to have control over her life so as to be a healing force. And I thought, what does friendship truly depend upon? And that's not just looking at superficial things like how much money she has or how much fame she has. It's her stripped down to not Madonna, but Madonna Ciccone. And me, stripped down from a nobody who has no money, no Swiss bank account or whatever, to just me. And at that point, at the end of the story, that's when real friendship begins, when the two actually meet as people. So there's no pretense on either side. So that's what it started off being. And I kept, for a long time, I kept her as the main character and him as an influence, for a force of influence, not knowing about Dramatica. This is a good 13 years ago before I discovered Dramatica. 13 or 14 years before I discovered Dramatica. But Dramatica, the theory actually explains why you need that force to change the main character. Or you could have a main character that remains steadfast and the influence character becomes changed sort of off screen through the main character. But anyway, I thought it it would be good for her to have this loss of control, and then there's a happy ending, and she grows from it, and so forth. And then I switched it to the audience identifying more with the character that I based myself upon. I mean, I based from myself, and she would be an influence, or it didn't seem to work. Now I have it where she's her fame, or her identity, aspects of her identity, impact upon the main character. So that's the way I have it now. I'll go back to the actual topic of the video, admiration and hero worship and so forth. I would like to think that she is a well-rounded, emotionally mature person who cares about people, who doesn't do it for fame necessarily, although it's nice to have fame. It's nice to know, like George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg being another person that I've looked up to very much, along on par, I'd say, with Madonna. Kind of the male version of Madonna in my mind. Well, no, I don't want to say that. Strike that. Just my admiration for both of them is perhaps equal. Maybe Steven Spielberg being somewhat higher because I grew up with him, with all of his movies and TV productions and so forth. But anyway, I would want to meet, the Madonna that I would want to meet would be somebody emotionally mature, who's kind, who gives to others and gives to her family, and is smart about her money and fame, and doesn't walk around with airs or arrogance. I know experiences are different, and becoming a famous star, what kind of other star could you have but famous star, can do things to people. But I think if were I to become a star like that, I would like to think, and I would like to think I've had such a poor, I don't want to say underprivileged, but, well, in some sense, yeah, underprivileged. I've strived so much. I've strived so much to get a career going that I would understand what it's like not to have had that. Even if I were to win the lottery, I would be smart with my money, and I would still understand and respect what I could have. It's a means to an end. Money would be a means to having a better life for myself. And I'm not in a position now to really critique her music lately. I'll just say that I'm more of a fan. I am a fan of the music she had in the 80s and early 90s, and I just drifted away from keeping up with popular music in general, but I've also drifted away from listening to her music. I mean, the last album, I really heard some songs in as an album, and this is just happenstance on the radio or on TV or something, was Ray of Light. And I've heard something, I liked her rendition of Fever. That was nice. It was a given that she would sing Fever, do a cover version of Fever. I really haven't kept up with her music. But the more recent music I've heard, I'll give her credit that she's changing. She's trying different like sounds or different types of music, and I applaud her for changing and growing. It just seems like she's still trying to recapture it. She's still trying to recapture. It's funny, I'm thinking of Sunset Boulevard. She's trying to retain or bring back the height of fame that she had. People still respect her, or people still talk about her. They still know about. Well, sadly, I saw one YouTube video. I think it was a YouTube video where they were at, some younger generations were asked, like, who was Madonna, and they didn't know. That's sad. That's really sad. I mean, that's like saying, just to throw out a name, Mae West, or even Marilyn Monroe. Like, people not knowing who Marilyn Monroe was. Or, I mean, that's just really sad. Cultural illiteracy, but that's another video. So that's the kind of Madonna that I wish I could actually meet, and I really don't know what the actual Madonna is like. So anyway, I don't know if this screwed up my chances of making a movie. Oh, going on to the movie. So I thought of, I really, really wanted to have Madonna's name as a character and portray her in, I mean, have her portrayed in the movie project as herself. But there's been some recommendation in screenwriting books and just by some people. They've said use a fictional character. You're locking yourself into just her and not somebody else, like Paula Abdul or somebody else. So I thought of a fictional name I could put, which would be Farah, which sounds like Pharaoh, which would remind perhaps somebody who's not culturally illiterate of Farrah Fawcett. But in my screenplay project, I've had her resembling or being an allusion to the Pharaoh and Joseph and so forth. And maybe if you know the story, if you're familiar with the story, you know where that's going. So I thought of Farah as a write-in name, placeholder. And I still think that her persona, her image in the public mind still has traits that are very worthy, that are still visually worthy and still movie worthy. There's a gimmick. It's gimmick worthy in the positive sense, like oh, Madonna loses control over her life in a funny way. I mean, people know Madonna. The gist of that premise could carry a lot of weight. So I don't know how much I can go with Madonna type character, but I guess I will write it in that sense, and that opens me up to pitching it to other people, just production companies in general, and not necessarily being beholden to Madonna's management company and Madonna herself. If she declines it, I change it anyway and still try and do something with it, hopefully. So there you are. Have you had experiences with celebrities, or you, for example, even if you learned something that dismayed you about the celebrity, pretenses about the celebrity, maybe had a crush on a celebrity, something? Tell me, share in the comments below. Keep telling people about this YouTube channel. I talk about theories about the universe. I talk about like Dramatica theory and biblical, the Bible and Kabbalah and introspection and personal experiences, so that perhaps you could grow from my experiences, or at least commiserate or share your experiences that are similar to mine. And until next time, be well.